not possible. It defies logic.
So let's address the second point. Second point, the thing is that if we could fully understand God, then that will just show how fallible the Bible is. And what I mean by that is that if we could totally understand God 100%, a spiritual being, okay, we're talking about a spiritual being who sits outside of space and time. Think about that. He sits outside of space and time, and he sees time in one shot. So therefore, when things happen, a supernatural being who causes things to happen, our finite minds cannot fathom that, because our thought process is very limited compared to God's. But if it was on the same level as God's, then that would be hardcore evidence right then and there to show you that the Bible was made up by men.
Okay, so this dude says God sits outside of space and time. Okay, prove it. Prove it. Prove that God sits outside space and time and can see this and is doing all this and everything. Because again, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit that this God is causing things to happen on the planet when you have the Bible saying that, if people pray, they can receive this. None of this stuff is happening. You have this supposed God who's supposed to be interacting with people on the planet, and we are not seeing it. So, again, it's crazy talk. It's religious talk that's something that you have faith in, you believe in, but you cannot prove. So it doesn't belong in a conversation with me. I'm about truth. I'm about facts. You can't prove it's a God sitting outside space and time. So we're not even going to address that. So when you look at the first chapter of Genesis, there's some clear flaws in it. So when you read Genesis 1:5, it says, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning was the first day. Genesis 1:8 says, and God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning was the second day. Genesis 1:11 says, God created the grass, herbs, fruit trees. Genesis 1:13 says, the evening and the morning was the third day. Now, you have 3 days past, 3 days come into existence, I should say. And you have the creation of trees, fruit trees, grass, and what have you. You have 3 days that God calls evening and morning. But all of this happens before God creates the sun, which he doesn't create until Genesis 1:16. So common sense would tell you we cannot have an evening and a day without a sun and a moon. I know to religious people that may be possible. It's God can do anything. But to people with common sense who looking at this book, they would say, well, there's no damn way you can have evening and morning without a sun and a moon. But on top of that, how the hell is he creating grass and fruit trees and trees without a sun? Knowing that plants, survive through, photosynthesis, through absorbing the sun's light. So most people will look at that and say, well, it doesn't fit, but, it's in the Bible, and move on with it. And it's a major flaw in the book. Now, if you read Genesis 1:3, where it says, and God said, let there be light. Most people with common sense would think that, when it says, let there be light, that it's talking about God creating the sun, or God speaking into existence the sun. But we see that's not the case, because the sun is not made until Genesis 1:16 later.
Ooh, me. Oh, wait, I got this one. I got this one. Okay, so first of all, let's go ahead, stop it right there. As you can see, this guy has clearly no understanding of the Bible whatsoever. Now, he calls this common sense and logic. Now, first of all, the Bible doesn't say that the light is the sun, okay? And the thing is that if you've read the Bible in its entirety, and you have understood what the Bible was saying in its entirety, and it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or a secularist. If you have read the Bible and have understood it, you would notice that when it talks about in the beginning, God said, let there be light, it had nothing to do with a sun. It had nothing to do with a moon. Okay? How do we know about that? Well, Jesus clearly says that he is the light. So let's just go ahead and look at a couple of scriptures here. Let's go ahead and look at John 8 and 12. Jesus says, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. He also says in John 9 and 5, as long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Okay, Jesus also says in John 11:9, are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble because he sees the light of the world. Now, how do we know that Jesus was referring to himself as the light? Okay, so let's go ahead and let's check out John 1 and 1. John 1 and 1 says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So that basically lets you know that God was not talking about the sun and the moon. Okay, God is the light. He is the light to truth. All right, so it has nothing to do with some sun or something like that. But the black nationalist doesn't understand that because they have not understood the Bible. They have not read the Bible. They have not understood it. So they believe that when they hear in Genesis where it says, God says, let there be light, that God was talking about some sun or something that you can see. But no, he was actually talking about Christ, because just like I just pointed out in John 1 and 1, it says clearly, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. What did Jesus do? He claimed to be God. That's why the Jews got ready to stone him a few times. So it has nothing to do with some sun or anything like that. That's why it wasn't until the fourth day when God created the sun and the moon. Because, number one, we have to understand that God is the sustenance of all life. So first of all, God is self-sufficient. He doesn't need anything. And anything can be created through him. All right? So God didn't need to make the moon and the stars and the sun and all of that stuff in order for plants and all of that stuff to grow. God spoke it into existence, and he kept it alive at that time. And then the sun was made. So it has nothing to do with sun and photosynthesis and all of that. We understand that stuff now, but when you really look at it, God doesn't need to have the sun to bring life to something or to sustain life, because he is a self-sufficient being himself.
So now this is basically where we deal with the whole, spooky Bible talk versus proven facts. Now, one, I didn't say that the light is the sun. I said people would assume that the light is the sun, because common sense, once again, will tell you that you cannot have day without the sun in the sky. Now, this dude want to get into spooky Bible stuff, saying that Jesus is the light of the world. And, you can't prove that some dude lit the whole world. You can't prove that. What proof do you have that that happened? One, you don't even understand that it's metaphorically talking about the sun. And everything, all the verses you just gave is Jesus describing himself as the sun. Jesus, I'm the light of the world. You can't see in darkness without me and all this crap. Please, it's the sun, man. It's the sun. I can flip out the lights right now. The sun is out. I can see in here. I don't need Jesus for that. It's just that simple. Now, you even said yourself that God is a self-sustainer, that God provides sustenance to the world. Prove that. I can prove that the sun does. Without the sun, nothing will grow. We won't be able to eat. Nothing will be able to live on this planet without the sun. You can't prove to me that without, this God or this Bible, we can't live. We can't survive. But I can prove that without that sun, we are all dead and gone. I can prove that. Anybody can prove this. Common sense. So I don't need God, your God, in my life to be successful. I'm successful without him. I don't need him to provide sustenance. I get that from the sun. So what are you talking about? Again, this is where we have spooky logic versus actual factual stuff. And what I was basically saying is common sense will tell anybody with a brain that you can't have day and night without the sun and the moon. You just can't have it. It's just not possible. But anybody with a religious mind will believe such a thing. And he says it. So, well, God is the light and this and that. Jesus the light. Prove it. You can't prove that. But I don't have to prove that you can't light this planet without the sun. And in darkness, you will see the moon. I don't have to prove that. It's already proven. So again, you don't belong in the same debate with me because you're talking about weirdo, spooky cartoon stuff. I'm talking about actual factual stuff that deals with reality and common sense. You don't belong in the same conversation with what I'm talking about. So, I'm just going to keep going through with the video. Now, ancient Kemet has different creation stories, and it's either told different ways, basically about the same stuff.
All right, hold on, wait. Did you catch that? Okay, so he says that there are different stories from ancient Kemet. Okay, there's ancient Kemetic stories and all of that stuff, and they're told differently and all of that. But wouldn't that mean that the stories of ancient Kemet are unreliable? If there are like so many different stories? Because guys like this always like to say, oh, there's so many contradictions in the Bible, there's so many different versions, but you're okay with Kemet having so many different stories and being told so many different ways? That right there shows me that this is going to be a very, very interesting video to refute. I've already watched it, but I'm breaking it down point by point. Let's just keep going, man.
See, now, and I hate when people do stuff like this, when they try to make it like you said something so outrageous and, you're stupid for saying it, and that you look crazy for saying something that's so outrageous and crazy. And they try to make themselves look good by basically laughing and talking down something that you said when they are completely wrong about it. First of all, I said that the stories are told a little bit differently, but they basically are the same. Now, it's a lot of stories that have different versions, but are basically talking about the same thing. For instance, you have the King James Version, you have the NIV, you have the NLT, you have the ESV, basically giving you different versions, different words are placed there, different things are said in these books, but basically talking about the same thing. Now, you have servant in some of the versions, you have slave in some of the versions, but we know what it's talking about. Now, you can't talk about the reliability of the ancient Egyptian creation story because, one, the ancient Egyptian creation story is a myth. It's something that is told to basically convey the creation story. And it's something that we ain't sitting back and saying we 100% believe in as actual factual. What we are saying is we had a creation story before your Bible. That's what we're talking about. So by his own logic, saying that you're okay with the Kemet stories told so many different ways and this and that, you don't have any proof of your story. We know where our story came from. We can prove the people who wrote it actually exist. There's no controversy surrounding who created our story and where our story came from. You have no proof to back up your story. That's a question best posed to yourself. Are you okay that we don't have the original Bible? Are you okay that there's absolutely no proof to back up the claims of the Bible? The history of the Bible is not proven. You okay with that by your own logic? Are you okay with that? So, it's funny. People come here and they do stuff like this a lot to try to make themselves look good. But apply exactly what you're saying and your whole outrage and everything to exactly to your Bible, to your own book. Apply all that bullshit that you're talking to your own Bible. Apply it to that and use that same logic, and you'll see who is more ridiculous. Because one, as I said, the stories basically talk about the same thing. There's no proof to back up your story. Your book is surrounded by so much controversy. The biggest, us not having the original. And even bigger than that, the fact that it's not proven. At the end of the day, that's all you got is faith. Again, we're not sitting here telling people to believe everything the Egyptians said. This is stuff that you assume. You're assuming you know what I talk about. You assuming that you know what I preach to. You calling me a black nationalist, assuming that I'm militant and that's something that I'm about, preaching only pro-black and all this and that. You don't even know me. You don't know what I talk about. You're a troll. You looked at a video and decided to basically try to refute it, and you're completely wrong. The Memphite creation story, or just the older creation stories of Kemet, you can see that basically, what the sun is. For the very great one is Ptah. Atum is basically what he's spoken to existence. And Atum, or Atum Re, or Atum Ra, is the sun. And you will see you have the creator God, Ptah, speaking things into existence, and he spoke the sun, Atum Ra, or Atum Re. Either way, it's the sun. He spoke it into existence.
All right, so as you can see, this guy said a mouthful there. First of all, he's talking about Ptah, this ancient Egyptian god. Now, first of all, Ptah, this story it wasn't written until around, I think, between 750 and 650 BC. So this is about 700 years before Christ, okay? And 700 years before the canonization of the Bible, which I've already explained. Now, first of all, we have to understand that David lived around that time, okay? So this is around the time where the book of Samuel and Psalms and all of that stuff was being written. We had already had the creation story. The creation story was already there. It had already been in existence around that time. You're talking about Ptah, and this happened in 750 BC. That was around the time of David and his rule. So that's around the time that those books like Samuel, just like I said, Psalms, was being written already. It was already there. The creation story was already there. It had been around for thousands of years.
Okay, so, well, anybody who does any kind of research already know what I'm going to say. Okay, first of all, one, prove it was a David. Prove it was a Samuel. We have this whole thing again where we have a person who believes in the Bible that is not proven, not backed up by proven history. And then here I am stating facts. Yes, the Shabbat stone goes back to the 8th century BCE. There's nothing biblical that predates it. You can't find me no Bible anything that predates the 8th century BCE. So you sitting there talking about, well, we had the creation story well before that, and we had this before that. Prove it. Where's the proof? You have no proof. You're going by a book that is not proven. So again, you're talking about something that's surrounded in fiction, something that requires faith versus something that we have. We have the Shabbat stone, where the story about Ptah comes from. We have that. That's proven to exist. We don't have nothing biblical that predates it. So again, what are we doing here? What are you talking about? Again, we keep running into this line of questioning. You sitting here, and then later on in the video, you're going to see he's talking about proof, and provide proof. And he's sitting here rambling off about figures, people who are not proven to have existed. We only find them in the Bible. Nobody else talked about these people. When you have civilizations around the world talking about ancient Kemet. And again, this is the problem with a lot of these religious people. They think we're pushing Kemet because we're talking about truth. We're talking about what actual factual history shows us. We're not pushing Kemet. We're not saying this is a religion and this is what you need to believe in and the Bible is this and this and that. We are saying this was here before the Bible, which we can prove. And that the stories just happen to sound a lot the same from these ancient Egyptian mythologies. So, and we're making that comparison. One, we can prove what we're talking about. You cannot. You can't do that. You have no proof to back up what you're talking about. It's surrounded in faith. We don't belong in the same conversation. Now, the Egyptians venerated the sun and many other things. So they ascribed a lot of these things human form. So it would be more easy to understand and for people to teach more about it when you put it in human form. So they did that with animals as well. They put a lot of things in animal form so you can understand it. So when you look at the sun, you had different representations of the sun. So we can look at the scarab beetle or the dung beetle, and it is also a representation of the sun.
Exodus 20:4, you shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above or on the earth beneath or in the waters below. Well, already the Bible is already warning you in the book of Exodus, which is about 700 years before Ptah, that we are not to give reverence to anything. We're not supposed to worship anything. So to sit back and say that the Bible was stolen from ancient Kemet, when ancient Kemet is worshiping the sun, but the Bible said 700 years before Ptah was even thought of, the Bible had already warned us about worshiping the sun and creatures and all of that stuff. So already, this guy's argument is already starting to fall apart.
Okay, he starts out by quoting Exodus about graven images and stuff like that. Who is that for? I'm not bound by the Bible, you are. And the Egyptians obviously wasn't bound by the Bible. Then you say that Exodus was created before, the Exodus story was before Ptah. Again, prove that. You have no proof. There's nothing biblical that proves Exodus happened before the creation story. The Shabaka stone. There's no kind of artifact, nothing that you have that proves Exodus predates the Shabaka stone. So stop with that. Again, you just talking. You just talking. So he's saying my story's starting to fall apart and this and that. Dude, your story been fell off the table, man. It's been over. This is overkill now. Because, again, you are only using faith. You are using the Bible and using that as proof to basically back up everything that you're saying when there is no proof to back it up. There's no primary sources to back up the Bible. There's nothing. There's no kind of scholarship that you can pull out that's going to prove that book. So I'm giving you facts. I'm giving you proof. I'm giving you things that actually exist. I'm not pushing this whole thing. I'm not saying that, the Bible copied off the ancient Egyptians using the animals or whatever to convey stories about nature and reality. I didn't say that the Bible copied from that. I was just saying that this is what it was about. This is why they did stuff like that. I didn't say the Bible copied that. I didn't say in the book. I didn't say in the video that it's in the book that they copied that. So you're putting stuff in my mouth. I never said that. I never said that they copied it because clearly I know that the Bible says, not have to have any graven images and stuff like that. Even though, you guys wear crosses and people get Jesus tattoos and you got Jesus pictures and stuff all over the place. So again, this is stuff that I deal with a lot. I see people do the same things over and over again where they just run to the Bible and they don't use a proven fact. No, the Exodus story does not predate the Shabaka stone. There's no proof of that. The only place in the world where it says that is in your Bible. But not just that, even when you just look at the creation story, our creation story about rebirth and how the sun came into existence. So you had basically, the Big Bang. And a lot of people talk about the Big Bang and don't understand it's supposed to be two Big Bangs. You had the first Big Bang that brought the universe into existence and the second one that brought our solar system into existence. So when you look at the Bible, it's already kind of flawed right there because everybody's expecting the beginning of creation to take place in Genesis. But really, in real life, the universe existed billions of years before the earth was came into existence, before it was created.
All right, first of all, he's talking about the Big Bang. How do you know that the Big Bang even happened? Because there is zero evidence for it. And if there is evidence, I would love for you to provide evidence of the Big Bang. Because most of the top scholars, or I wouldn't even say scholars, but a lot of atheists who support this Big Bang theory, they can't even explain it. So I want you to show me the evidence of the Big Bang. Because this is where so-called science falls apart for them. Because by definition, isn't science something that can be observed and tested? So who was there to observe the Big Bang? How can you test the Big Bang? So if you can't do both of those things, then you're moving out of the realm of science and you're moving into the realm of philosophy. So since no one was there to observe the Big Bang, and no one can test the Big Bang, where's your evidence for that? There isn't any. Research it yourselves. There's no evidence for the Big Bang. Now, I don't have time to go into and try to make a whole sub video to the Big Bang and why there's no evidence or anything like that. But I want you guys to go ahead and research it. And I want you to do a compare and contrast. Evidence of the Big Bang versus no evidence of the Big Bang. And you'll see. Also, he talks about millions and billions of years. Now, I want you guys to understand that this concept is a young concept. Now, nobody I'll probably say before the mid-1800s, basically before Charles Darwin, no one believed in evolution and millions of billions of years. And it's not because we've had some enlightenment and he just kind of brought some groundbreaking evidence to prove millions and billions of years. First of all, again, who was there billions of years ago to attest to that? Secondly, how can you test millions of billions of years? You can say carbon dating, but then what's carbon dating process? Because most people like to say, well, carbon-14 dating. Oh, really? Because carbon-14 dating actually says the opposite about millions of billions of years. People may say, well, it's the rock layers. You know, you got dinosaurs that's buried way down beneath, and then you got later on, then you start to see in the rock layers to the top, then that's when you start to see humans and other life. Not really, because you have bones. You can check this out for yourself. You have dinosaur bones that are buried in the same rock layers with humans. So that crushes the whole millions and billions of years. But like I said, show the evidence for these two Big Bangs, which you can't test and observe. And I want you to go ahead and show me where do you get your evidence from for millions and billions of years, which you can't test and observe as well.
So when you look at what science tells us is you had a supernova, which is basically a sun exploding that created this solar system. And after the explosion, you basically had the sun reform out of this explosion. So you had rebirth with the sun recreating itself as a self-creator.
Where did this supernova come from? Well, I mean, where did this sun come from that exploded and then recreated itself? Like I said, where's the evidence for that? Who was there to witness that happen? How do you know that? You mean to tell me that in the beginning there was just a supernova and it was just there? How old was this supernova? Because if it's in space and then it blew up and then it recreated itself, where's your evidence for that? And how long did it take for it to blow up and recreate itself? Was it always there? Or was it put there? So, I mean, already this guy's argument is starting to fall apart. How do you come up with these things? How do you come up with, this supernova and this is where the universe came from?
So again, this dude's trying to be funny, talking about, billions and billions of years and, the Big Bang and supernovas and stuff like that, which I spoke about in the video. Now, my point, and again, as I said before, in talking about the Big Bang Theory and talking about supernovas, anybody who watches my videos understand, one, I don't agree with this stuff. When I explain this stuff, it's me explaining what science tells us. When you do an analysis, when you're doing research, you have to go through everything and talk about what these people are speaking on and see does it fit with your research and you understand this, those who watch the videos. Now, in this video, what I'm saying is the Bible is not even on par with what science is saying. As I say in the video, science says. So it's not even on par with what science is talking about. You have scientists all around the world talking about the Big Bang, talking about supernovas. Anybody who studies astronomy understands what a supernova is. So he's making it like I'm just out of nowhere. Who put the supernova there? How did it just appear? Where did it come from? Well, if we're going to use that line of thinking, who put God there? Where did God come from? God just came out of nowhere, started creating shit. Who put him there? Who created him? If you want to use that line of questioning, he's acting like, supernovas is just this thing out of nowhere that it has no kind of merit or any substantiation to back it up. So again, I'm going to go to this article. It says, luminary lineage. Did an ancient supernova trigger the solar system's birth? A shockwave from an exploding star 4.5 billion years ago looks to have begun the collapse of the molecular cloud that formed the sun and planets. It says, one star dies, another is born. The remains of the old are gathered up, at least in some small measure, to become part of the new. That is the astronomical circle of life. The reason that stars have evolved through the eons, each generation incorporating new elements synthesized in the stars that came before. Unlike the earliest stars of hydrogen and helium, stars nowadays contain heavier elements passed down to them by their predecessor. such as carbon, iron, and oxygen. So I guess these things don't exist. So these things is out of thin air too. Aside from producing many of the elements that make up our planet and our bodies, the stellar cycle of birth and death appears to have spurred the formation of our solar system some 4.5 billion years ago, according to a new model outlined in a study in the July 1st issue of Astrophysical Journal Letters. A shockwave from an exploding massive star several light years away probably triggered the collapse of the molecular cloud that would become our sun and planets. Employing a bit of astrophysical forensics, researchers have located fingerprints of short-lived radioisotopes long since decayed to more stable daughter elements and primitive meteorites. For those radioisotopes to have been incorporated into primordial solar system bodies, they must have been delivered freshly synthesized from some nearby cataclysm, whether a stellar explosion known as a supernova or an aligning star throwing off layers of material in less dramatic fashion. So I'm going to stop right there. So this dude is trying to make it like supernovas out of nowhere. Like, this is not something discussed in astronomy, discussed in science. This is something that is real, that has been observed, that has been studied for decades. There's no proof that this guy came down and said, "Let there be light." As he said, who was there to witness that? Who was there to witness God say, "Let there be light"? By your own logic. You're contradicting yourself and you don't even see that. So by your own logic, what you're talking about is already flawed. Everything you're trying to prove with the Bible is flawed. You have no proof.
You have zero evidence of it. And then, like, early in the video, he talks about, Christians, all they got is faith. You have to have a serious amount of faith to believe that in the beginning there was a supernova sun that blew up, recreated itself, and then it blew up again, and then that's where all of the stars and planets and the whole universe just came from.
So again, this dude is trying to be funny, talking about, you had a supernova that blew up and recreated itself, then blew up again and created. I never said it blew up twice. So that again proves he doesn't know what he's talking about because he's not paying attention. He's trying to be funny. Never said that the sun blew up twice to create the planets. Now, I just read to you what science is saying about supernovas creating the planets. So again, he's trying to make it like I'm just out of nowhere. Well, you got to be crazy to believe this and all this and that. And he says we have no proof. By his same logic, dude, where's your proof that God created all this stuff? By your same logic. You got to be crazy to believe that this dude just came down here and just spoke all this stuff into existence.